Stray Kids recently announced their next album, and I kind of wanted to theorize based on what we've seen about it and kind of what we've seen in the past and what that could look like for in the future. So based on what we saw in the Karma trailer specifically, we're told that it's set in 2081. Not only is this year maybe important, maybe not necessarily important, but it's at least something intentional. It's kind of an inverse of 2081 where they switch the numbers around, as well as the 8-1 is kind of like August 1st, or that 0801 that they use a lot, which is considered the stay birthday. There's also a lot of uses of the 8s throughout the entire trailer, which can be tied into, obviously, the member count, because there's 8 members. This is something we've seen a lot, where they bring up that 8 number. Like with 8, they use that as a double entendre, 8 and 8. And we even see inside of the stadium, and we see almost like a Mobius strip weaving around, which could be part of the main theme of the sports, which is racing. So there's this KRM8, which is what the game is abbreviated as. It could tie into it with the Carmate almost, and that's the track itself. We see ceremony throughout the trailer, like with how it's on the walls of Lino and Seungmin's bedroom, as well as there's little neon signs popping up throughout Hyunjin's wide shots. We see it all over, and we recently found out that's actually because it's the title track of the album. So I went to look around the city a little more to see if there were any other references to the songs that we know now that we have the track list. And the only big ones I could find were, I saw a golden bird almost inside of that large shot of Hyunjin, which could tie into Phoenix. It could also be a part of the trophy, given that it's a golden bird. It could be like the main trophy. It could be an element of the main trophy they receive. But I don't really think it's tied to Phoenix. We don't see much of it. If we're going to, we'd probably know a little bit more about it. It probably would have appeared more in the trailer if it was tied to it. The only other really big one I wondered about was they have a song called In My Head, and the music kind of abruptly cuts at one point, and that's when IN gets hit in the head. Kind of a stretch, but I mean, a coin is hitting him in his head. There's a song called In My Head. I mean, it's definitely a stretch, but I think it's worth mentioning. With those 2 songs being there, and we also know that there's going to be about 2 unveiled tracks for this album release. I wonder if those 2 could be In My Head and Phoenix, because those are the ones we see. We see that golden bird, and we also see IN get hit in the head with the coin. But speaking of the track, let's just talk about it a little bit more. I find the lack of Hollow Korean version on Karma kind of peculiar. I really expected that they would include a Korean version of Hollow, given that it just came out. Stray Kids usually will try and cram a Korean version of their Japanese soundtracks onto whatever album comes out next. Although they didn't put a giant Korean version on Hop, so I'm not sure. Maybe they're changing up how they do it. But previously, they would put it on anything, even if it wasn't really that related. Like Scars was slapped onto the Skiz 2021, which was more about re-releasing songs that were re-recorded to take Woojin off. And I wondered about the reason why Hollow would not be included on this. And my main theory was that Hollow was actually supposed to be released around now. And Karma was meant to be released back around when Hollow came out. But they were switched because of a lot of the mixed reactions Mixtape Dominate had when it switched the solo tracks. And I wondered if they didn't want to switch up the set list again, and they decided to just put it off for later. Keep that album away. And because of that, they weren't able to switch the track list, given that they're using vinyl variants now. And that can get kind of expensive when you have to repress a vinyl, test it out, put it through, just to change a song or add a song. This could also explain why there were less songs on the shows with unit tracks versus the solos, because I intended to add those Karma tracks in, but eventually opted out on it to save those Karma tracks for after the tour is completely finished. The first time we see one is literally 2 days after tour ends on August 1st. It's totally possible that they decided to save it for later so that they're not going to be putting it on the album at all, or putting it on the tour at all, and they don't need to worry about that. It's also worth mentioning that Hollow was announced 2 months before its release, which, I mean, I feel like that's a little excessive for an album, unless it was meant to come out later and they needed to work on it a little bit more. They needed that time to fix it up and get it to be where they wanted it to be. And because Hollow was meant to be released after Karma, it could explain why that Korean version isn't on this on Karma, because they just didn't have it set up quite yet for that, and it's possible it'll be included later on that second album that we are told is coming out later. Another thing I wondered about with Ceremony is, I mean, they're releasing a song called Ceremony where they sing hip hip hooray, it's a ceremony. Like, is there any significance behind that? And I wondered, I couldn't find anything. But then I remembered, there is one instance where we've seen August 22nd before, and it was in 2017. Their very first performance as Stray Kids on August 22nd, 2017 was at JYP's Homecoming Showcase. I mean, this could serve as the ceremony for that 8 years since they first debuted. Not exactly a debut, but performed together for a live audience. I think that's a pretty good reason to celebrate a ceremony. What this also could mean is this is kind of like a closing chapter, not really a closing chapter, but definitely a transition to something new. They're almost concluding something, and it's kind of felt like they're doing that now with they're kind of teasing a smaller tour coming next year, and they're also putting out another album in the year, which, I mean, this album's coming out August 22nd. There's not much time left for a real big album. So I think it could be like some sort of grouped together album where they're kind of squishing in some songs, like a compilation of sorts, where they're compiling those previous songs, putting them in, slap Hollow in, Hollow Korean version, might as well, and they've got those all together, kind of like BTS's Proof for 17's compilation album. I threw together what the timetable could kind of look like based on what we've seen so far, and given that we received that track list on July 29th, I think the next thing we'll receive on the 3rd will be the actual cover art. I mean, currently it's just this white background with some black text on it that says Karma, Stray Kids' 4th album. I mean, it works as an album cover, but it doesn't make sense for Stray Kids. They usually do something more elaborate. We've seen this happen before where JYP Entertainment have shown one album cover, but then it's switched later on. Like with ITZY's album earlier this year, Girls Will Be Girls, they had a black album cover with red Girls Will Be Girls text on it. But once the album released, it switched to be a kind of a gray background with a girl in it and Girls Will Be Girls text on it. And it was a lot more creative. It actually had something to it than just being text on a screen. I think they're absolutely going to switch it up. And then after that, we have a few days in a row. Those will definitely be the concept photos, followed up by a track unveil video, which we talked about earlier. That'll be on the 7th. The one thing I'm wondering about, though, personally, I'm not sure what August 14th will be. It's timed for being a regular YouTube video, like how on August 21st we see that one's also timed for being a regular video. I think that one will be the Karma intro video, since it comes out at 20 o'clock, or basically, what would that be, 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. at night? That's usually what time they release the YouTube videos. And we see that for the 14th as well. I personally couldn't figure out what that is. What is it that they've previously released with being a YouTube video about a week before the album? I don't know. So I think this could be just something special that they'll reveal later on, and then we'll see it. But I'm kind of not sure about that one. I don't know if you guys have any ideas. But yeah, that's about what we have so far. I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I'm curious what they'll take it to next. I'm definitely curious about what the concept photos will look like. I wonder if it'll have kind of like a festival style, but also, you know, I think it's 19. The 19 music video is kind of like a dark birthday party. I wonder if we'll have something like that, but more in the future, like the Karma trailer. You know what I mean? I don't know. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear, because obviously I have no idea. We're both in the same boat on this one. I don't know what they're doing. So I'd love to hear your theories about this all. It's kind of interesting to talk about. Interesting to think about. what they could be doing. Thanks for watching. Bye 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 bye.